911.
Whoa, 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 everybody. You know what time it is. You know what time it is. You know what time it is. That's right, babies. It is real vile time. And boy, are we excited to get June started off in the right way, in the LGBTQ way, in the very, very, very queer way. With our feature film this week is going to be 1985's Jack Shoulder directed cult classic, Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. But before we get into that, let me introduce my co-hosts, my wonderful, beautiful, amazing co-host. We've got the Prime Minister, the sinister, ruthless Chris. Say hello to the people in real vile land, Chris.
Hey, hey, hey.
Hey, 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 indeed.
Hey, hey.
All right. And also, of course, we can't go on. We can't do anything without the Tower of the Hour, the right. Princess of Power, the Killer Kelly Miller. Say hello to the people in real vile land, Killer Kelly.
Hey. Hey, y'all.
Hey, y'all. And you know,
hey,
y'all means
hey,
all.
Hey, girls. Hey, y'all.
Y'all means all. That's everybody.
Y'all. Hey, y'all.
Real vile is for everybody. Oh, my goodness gracious gravy. What have you guys been up to lately?
Just keeping on. Keeping on.
Well, it looks like you're staying hydrated. You got some water there, so that's a good thing. You know, it's always a positive thing to stay hydrated.
Yeah, man.
How about you, Chris? Chris, are you staying hydrated over there?
I'm doing the best I can. It's fucking gross out here.
It's sticky.
Yeah, it's sticky where we're at. Bad weather. I spent most of the week on the road. Did like a wing went out of town. Gearing up this weekend's the old West End Fest, which is a big old like weekend like party art like kind of thing. They got street vendors and garage sales and art and bands and all kinds. It's like a
neighborhood party in like an area of Toledo that's all old Victorian homes. It's fucking cool.
So it's one of my favorite things of the year. So looking forward to that. Maybe picking up some art for the house, having some good times. Aside from that, just getting ready to debut up there in Chicago. When you hear this, it's probably about a week out. So we're coming to the Berwyn Eagles. So if you're in that area, make sure you come on out and say hi to all three of us. All four of us, Peapod included, actually.
Yeah.
Very exciting indeed. If I had a real vile shirt, I would wear it to the show. I will have to order one eventually. We've only been doing this show for what, 6 months, 7 months? I don't know.
It's been a little while.
Yeah, a little while, a minute. Me personally, you know, I've been busy promoting my own my own show, a show that I am hosting, a show that it's my first time ring announcing, my first time hosting a wrestling show, and I'm very excited. So yeah, I've been out doing podcasts, guest and interviews to present You'd Better Work, How Entertainment's first Pride Entertainment show, and I'm so excited about that. I'm thrilled. And I can't stop talking about it. And if you know anything about me, I've got the mindset, if I do anything creatively, you're going to know about it. So I've been pubbing the show nonstop since it was first announced for like 2-3 months now.
What's the date and location in case anyone wants to come out and support?
By the time this airs, it'll be over with.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it is June 4th. It's this coming up Sunday, at the Brar House in Lombard, Illinois. But yeah, I'm very excited for that. So when this airs, it'll be one day afterwards, and I hope that some of our listeners will be there and they will have cheered me on. I wish I planned ahead and had Germ T Ripper shirts made up, but I did not plan ahead. But besides that, I got some good news today that the position in the human resources department of my shoot job, I got the position of a substance abuse counselor. and
yeah.
I'm thrilled about that.
Oh,
Because I'm very open about my struggles with addiction, and my greatest joy in life is helping people get and stay sober. So I'm thrilled about this. That is things couldn't be going better in my life right now. But we're not here to talk about my life. We're here to talk about horror movies. And since it's June, we're talking queer horror. But before we get into that, we're going to do a little round robin of what we've been watching lately. Start off, of course, with you, Mr. Ruthless Chris, big dog in the house.
So I watched this on Peacock the other day. This is a brand new movie by Ryui Katamura, who made Midnight Meat Train and Versus. This one was a little bit like a From Dusk Till Dawn situation where it's like two movies in one. It's called The Price We Pay. The first half of it is a heist movie. Like it's they're robbing a pawn shop. Things go awry. They have to take a hostage, and then they in trying to escape find themselves in more of a horror movie direction kind of thing. So it flips halfway through from like a crime drama to a full-on horror movie. It was okay. It stars Steven Dorff, so you kind of know what you're going to get into with that. Emil Hirsch, who normally is very good and stuff, but he was really bad in this. Like, he was supposed to play this like mad dog killer who's unhinged, like the guy in the crew that always wants to kill everybody and like fuck the job up. But he just like comes off like it just doesn't really work. Like it feels really miscast, the whole thing. Vernon Wells is also in this, who's like you've seen in a million horror movies. It kind of goes into a bit of a body horror kind of situation. It's definitely very low budget. It's a small cast, kind of only like a couple locations, not a whole lot of special effects. It's worth watching once. I didn't fully enjoy it. I think it was just miscast, and the acting was bad. Like the dialogue was bad. There was a one particularly great gore scene in it though. So yeah, I mean, out of 5, I'd give it 2.5. That's The Price We Pay, 2022 on Peacock.
Kelly, have you seen this one?
No, I have not. Nope. I do like Steven Dorff and Cecil B. Demented though.
Steven Dorff was good in this.
Yes.
I mean, he's kind of hit or miss as an actor. I always liked him in SFW, if anyone remembers that. So Fucking What, where he was Cliff Spam. But, Cecil B. Demented was great. He's got a lot of great movies on, Blade.
Mm-hmm.
But this is, pretty much like a no budget. And, no budget doesn't bother me, but it definitely kind of came through. The story, I wish it would have expanded more on a few things. But, yeah, it was all right.
Yeah, I've heard a few good reviews about this, so I had been looking forward to a price we pay.
The Price We Pay.
The price we pay. But since you gave it 2.5 stars, I might just wait until it's streaming on one of the platforms I have. But you said it's on Peacock?
Yeah, they just added it this week, and I had heard good things too, and that's actually why I checked it out. I was actually looking forward to seeing it.
Right.
And it just didn't. With the pedigree, Versus is one of my favorite foreign films. It's so much fun, like it's Japanese zombie gangster movie to where anytime you reach into a pair of leather pants, you come out with fully loaded weapons and guns and shit. It's just like a great shoot 'em up. So, and Midnight Meat Train obviously is a very great film, but this one just didn't really live up to those films in my eyes.
All right. Well, good to know, because I'm a fan of those and I'm a fan of Steven Dorff. But let's keep the train rolling. And Miss Killer Kelly, what you been watching, baby?
The next movie I'm going to talk about is I loved this movie when it first came out a few years ago, 2017. This is Tragedy Girls. You can find it on Tubi and Freevee. And although it doesn't directly fit our LGBTQ theme, there is a lot of internet argument that the two girls are, a couple together. That's stutter. But I don't know. I was reading a lot of articles, and I'm like, I could see that argument, but I guess even though they don't make anything like blatantly obvious, they never like make out or anything. But anyway, this movie like starts out as your typical like teens making out in a car and like a dark, on a dark bridge scenario. The girl hears a noise. And, she gets kind of freaked out and she's like, go check it out to the guy, and he's like, I don't want to check it out. So she calls him a bitch and he's like, all right, I'll go check it out. And, it's a serial killer. There's obviously been a serial killer running around their neighborhood and shit. So, or not their neighborhood, but their town. There has been a serial killer on the loose. But, so that starts out all typical, but what you don't expect is the girl in the car had her friend hiding in the woods and they planned on the serial killer coming, so they kind of ambush him. And then they kind of take him away. This is in like the first 5 minutes of this movie. And they, they got like a bag over his head or whatever. They get him to a secluded spot and then they tell him what's up. And basically what's up is they're holding him hostage because they want to learn from him. All right, these two girls, Sadie and Michaela, they're best friends. They're like high school girls, cheerleaders, fucking. They run an amateur true crime channel on Twitter, and they're obsessed with being famous for it, like getting really into the murders and shit. So while they got this guy, they're, trying to like hold him hostage and try to learn from him and shit. So they are basically creating their own stories that they're reporting on their social media channels. I don't know. I love this fucking movie. This movie is really fun. It has a very heavy Heathers meets Scream vibe to it, but like kind of mixed with like the digital age with the Twitter and shit like that. Like, I don't know. This is a really fun movie. It's really gory. It's more of a dark comedy for sure. Yeah, I definitely recommend it. Like, I'd give this one probably 4.5. It's a fun fucking movie. Have you guys seen it?
Yes,
I have.
yes, I love Tragedy Girls.
Yeah.
I know it played one of the film festival I went to, but I missed it during the festival. I picked it up immediately on Blu-ray because of all the that one because of all the wonderful hype around it. It's great to see it stream. It's streaming on so many platforms because it is a very smart, very well done, and topical, female centric horror comedy. And I like that it reminded me of Behind the Mask, kind of.
Yes, it has that vibe to it too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it does fit in. What's that?
I'm sorry. I was gonna say, but it's also got that like fun, like teen vibe to it, like a teen fucking movie, like the Heathers. Like that's where you get the Heathers
Like
vibe.
Detention. Honestly, it reminded me a little bit of Detention in its vibe.
Oh yeah, I can see that too. Yeah.
I was excited to see. I'm not sure if it's Vinegar Syndrome or one of their partner labels put out a deluxe collector's edition of this.
Oh, nice.
Although I don't trade Blu-ray for Blu-ray unless it's accidental. But if you don't own this on Blu-ray, I suggest getting the Vinegar Syndrome collector's edition. Just because they have cool slip covers and crap like that. But yeah, I have the version you have too, Kelly. Yeah. And that's definitely good enough for me. But this is an awesome movie. Awesome. Totally awesome. Movie. And I think it being female centric and like that little bit of romantic tension you feel between the two female protagonists and antagonists.
Yeah,
the 2 stars.
Both, actually, yes.
Yeah. I feel like it does definitely fit into the queer horror subgenre. I gave this 5 stars all day.
4.5, 5, dude. I love this movie. I fucking love this movie.
Chris, you've seen this from what you said?
Yes, I have. I think it's streaming on Hulu or something. I watched
it on Tubi and Freevee right now, but it was on Hulu when it was first released.
Yeah, I watched it a few years back when it first came out. I definitely enjoyed it. Like I said, it kind of like she was saying, it has that like kind of teen energy. It reminded me a little bit of Detention. If you guys have ever seen Detention, I definitely liked it. It's very topical, especially now with like the podcast day and age and all that stuff too. So yeah, I definitely recommend. I give it 4 out of 5.
Very, very cool. Yeah. So if you haven't seen Tragedy Girls, there's no excuse not to. It's streaming on multiple free streamers. We all gave it high scores, 4.5 and 5. So watch Tragedy Girls. And keeping on chugging down the line, it's Big G to the E to the R to the M's turn. Oh, that's me. And I'm going to talk about what's probably, at least in my opinion, the first queer horror movie ever made. or one that is I don't want to say explicitly queer because there's no sex, of course, but it was made in 1932. It's made by openly homosexual director James Whale, mostly known for Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, and The Invisible Man. It's called The Old Dark House. This movie, it's got a very classic setup. Seeking shelter from a storm, five travelers are in for a bizarre and terrifying night when they stumble upon the Femme family estate. This movie has such a wonderful queer vibe to it that this is actually the movie that Rocky Horror Picture Show is based on.
Oh, no shit.
And besides that, the characters have, especially the characters that live in the Femme family estate, have a wonderful campy feel to them. They have a very high camp aesthetic. And there is a scene where one of the weary travelers who are staying there overnight and one of the madcap inhabitants of the estate are talking, and he turns to him and he goes, "I don't like you, I love you." And I don't think you'd ever seen two male characters in 1932 say "I love you" to each other, and not like
Right.
Yeah, I mean, sure, the guy saying it is a psychopath, but I mean, this was like pre-rating system, pre-code, anything goes kind of, and it's a tremendous film, and I've watched it several times ever since watching it for the first time, and just to know like the stars in this movie, you got Boris Karloff, everybody is in that universal horror realm. And it's wonderful. It's it's I want to say it's streaming on Tubi, Tubi, Mubi, Fandor, Cohen Media Channel, because this was released via the Cohen brothers, like their favorite films. They did like a series of their favorite films as a collector edition Blu-rays. I unfortunately do not own this on Blu-ray, but I was happy to see that it was on Tubi. If you haven't seen it, if you need action all the time, if you need a movie in color, this probably won't be for you, but I love it. I gave it 5 stars. It's black and white, it's classic, and it's very queer. Yeah, The Old Dark House, highly recommended. Have either of you seen this film?
I have not.
I have not.
All right, well, give it a chance if you like the old Universal films. It definitely has that feel to it, and it definitely has a high camp aesthetic that I'm a fan of. But 5 stars from a Big Germ T Ripper, and keeping the train a rolling. Back to you. I'm going to pass the ball back to you, Chris. Catch it. Oh, he caught it.
Interception. I didn't do so hot with the theme this week, but I'll make sure to do better. That I should say that the first movie I did review does have an element of that to it, but I couldn't really talk about it because it would ruin the horror element of it. But there is something with one of the monsters that does fit in theme. I will say that. However, my next two do not. I'm not even sure I'd consider this a full-on horror movie. It's more of a dark thriller, but there is horror elements to it. I watched The Vanishing from 1993. George Sluizer. This is a remake of a Dutch film. It stars Kiefer Sutherland, Jeff Bridges, and Sandra Bullock. I don't know how I had never seen this one. This one was a really cool watch. It was really quirky. Basically, you have Kiefer and Sandra Bullock are a couple. They're on the road. They stop off at a gas station. She goes into the gas station and never comes back. And he spends years of his life trying to figure out what happened to her. Like it haunts him. Like it really fucks his whole life up. Like he can't figure out like what happened to his fiance, why she walked into a gas station. He never saw her again.
Mm-hmm.
You have Jeff Bridges as a bumbling Dutch serial killer, which he is very good as. Like he's quirky and like he almost feels like a Coen Brothers character in this movie. And it's basically what happened to her, how he was involved, and then things unfold to where they are directly within each other's paths again. Like, like him trying to figure out what's going on and this guy being the reason for it. And maybe the same fate was going to happen to him and his current girlfriend. This was a fun watch. I hear the Dutch version's much better. Of course, usually it is. But this is one of those ones where I'd always seen the box growing up in video stores. I was always kind of curious about it, and they put it up on HBO Max, or now Max. It's just called Max now. I give this thing 3.5. It's not like a high body count or a bloody one, but it's real high tension, a lot of twists and turns, great performances, and it is pretty dark. So I definitely would recommend this one.
Kelly, have you seen this one at all?
I don't believe I have.
Yeah, I remember when it came out, but I think that I was so obsessed with like a pure horror aesthetic at the time that I just was like, nope, don't want to check it out. I've heard so many good things about The Vanishing since then. But what did you say it was streaming on again, Chris?
What used to be HBO Max, but now has turned to Max as of last week.
Good to know, because
I download the program and now it's Max.
Right? Yeah, I was kind of a pain in the dick to re-download it, because then I had to remember my password, and who remembers passwords?
Dude.
But yeah, I'm glad that I have Max so that I can watch The Vanishing. Because
check it out. It's definitely a fun watch.
Yeah, you just reminded me that I heard so many good things about that. 1993, The Vanishing. You said 3.5 stars?
Yeah.
Very cool.
A particularly great performance by Jeff Bridges. I'll say that. To go from the dude to this guy, pretty interesting.
Very, very cool. Yeah, I'll have to go back and watch that. Keeping the ball rolling, keeping the train a rolling. Killer Kelly, what you got for us, baby?
My next one, not all my movies fit the theme this week, but this one does. We've got Velvet Buzzsaw on Netflix. This is 2019, written and directed by Dan Gilroy, who also wrote Nightcrawler, which is a great fucking movie. Also starring Jake Gyllenhaal. This one is starring Jake Gyllenhaal, and John Malkovich is also in it. John Malkovich. He's weird in it, but he's weird in most things.
Malkovich.
Everybody's kind of weird in this movie. This follows Morph. He's in Mort, not Morph. I wrote Morph. He's an art dealer. He's attending this, art party in Miami. His opinion matters. He's top of the fucking, people are obsessed with this dude's opinion. And at this party, there's lots of pretentious other artists and gallery owners, and they're all, being assholes. Josephina, she's one of the people. I think she's a gallery owner or something, or works in one of the galleries. But she discovers her neighbor dead in the hallway and wanders into his apartment, where she finds it's a whole art studio of this really intriguing artwork. And she also sees that he was kind of trying to burn it. She's like, why the fuck would he burn his artwork? I don't know what the fuck. But who cares? She sells the shit anyway. So it's selling really good. They start diving into this artist. His name is Vertraudies. The paintings seem to have some sort of weird energy to them, some sort of weird curse. People that are buying them, there's crazy shit happening to them. So as the story goes on, you find more and more out about this Vertraudies. Couldn't remember his name. It's a weird name, but yeah, he's got a pretty sketchy fucking past. This movie was all right. It was really, I don't know. It was kind of boring. Not a lot really happens horror-wise till the third act. There was a cool scene where there's a dead body in the museum, and they thought it was part of the installation, and it let a class of children come in, and they all start playing in the blood, thinking it's part of the art museum. I don't know. That was kind of disturbing. I liked that scene though. But Yeah, I don't know. It was okay. I'd probably give it like a 3. It was just kind of boring. It seemed a little longer than it needed to be, and it was more of like a character development thing than like really like horror before they actually got into anything. You know what I'm saying? It was
Character
a
study.
character study, yes.
Yeah, I totally get that. I watched it when it first came out. I kind of forgot a lot of it, but at the
Yeah, I
same
did too.
time, I remember it being, kind of disjointed in places, and it
Hmm.
felt kind of Italian in the fact that it doesn't explain everything to you, and it feels like um, it's more about the aesthetic than it is
It is.
about telling a linear story.
There's some
And
really cool imagery and stuff in it, but it's story wise, it was another one of those where you find yourself like, how much longer is this? Like when is stuff gonna pick up here? You know, what's going on? Come on, you know? But yeah,
I totally get that. Yeah, I
yeah.
liked it, didn't love it, but yeah, 3 stars. Is it still on Netflix?
Yes, it's still on Netflix. Three and a half. I'd say is
Yeah,
fair. Hmm.
absolutely. Yeah, so if you haven't checked out Velvet Buzzsaw and you like films that are a little bit more artsy,
Hmm.
definitely check it out. It's worth a watch. I would agree.
Yeah.
Chris, have you seen Velvet Buzzsaw?
Excuse me. I have not. When it came out, I had heard a lot of people just like, it's not that great, and I just was
Yeah.
kind of lazy about getting around to it. I find a lot of the Netflix originals are a little more tamer, than what I normally
Hmm.
enjoy. So I never really got around to it. So
Totally understandable. Well, we're gonna keep on chugging down the tracks, and guess whose turn it is? It's Mr. Ripper. That's me, by the way. um, so luckily, for genre fans, the Shutter streaming network Shutter has dedicated a whole like category on their streaming service to queer horror. And so if you don't know what to watch in June and you want to check out something new or different or something you might have been interested in, but you didn't, there was nothing really grabbing you about it, just go to Shutter and click on queer horror because that's what I did. And I discovered the Spanish 1972 film that I'd always seen the cover for and I always thought about checking out. But it's called The Cannibal Man.
Okay.
I figured that this would be just a no budget, probably Italian exploitation slasher, whatever. Because, it has the word cannibal in it, and instantly it makes me think of Cannibal Holocaust. The title doesn't really fit the film. The original title, translated into English, is The Week of the Killer. And that actually makes a lot more sense because in this film, it's about a meat factory worker who accidentally kills a taxi driver. He's like trying to look more masculine in front of his girlfriend. And he begins gradually killing people close to him. His girlfriend, her brother, uh, they're like her father, anybody associated, and they don't sort of like play this out so that you can read it. It's not really laid out for you, but anybody associated with him being like heterosexual or being like masculine, he's killed. Anybody that thinks of him in this hyper masculine sense. And it's about a week long. It's a few days process. Um, and he's getting rid of the title of the Cannibal Man comes into play when he's taking pieces of the bodies and disposing them at the meat factory he works at. So it's going into the meat. But the one thing that makes this more outwardly queer is that his neighbor from across the way is watching him with binoculars this entire time, and he's kind of tracking his movements. And you think first, as a horror fan that's watched a million horror films, well, this is going to be like a Rear Window situation. But his new, very obviously gay neighbor that we don't, it's never once again obviously said, but he's swishy, and
Hmm.
he's more
swishy.
effeminate and he's high class, while the main character is more working class. but this guy's rich. He lives in a what you would consider a condo in a high rise nowadays.
Gotcha.
But he starts he starts engaging the main character, and then he finally invites him up to his condo, and he lets him know he's seen everything, but he accepts him for who he is, and he wants to, just like take him in and like live together, basically. I don't know. It was such a weird film. It's such a powerful film. I initially gave on if you check my letterbox, I gave it 3 stars. But now, like the more I talk about it, the more I think about it, I definitely give it more of a 3.5, maybe 4 stars. Yeah, it's a Spanish film, so if you don't like reading subtitles, it's probably not for you. But yeah, this is on Shudder. This is on AMC Plus. I know that it's on Tubi. I always been curious about it because I think it was Severin put out a collector's edition with like this. It's just a face with split open with like an axe, I think, in it. The director Eloy de la Iglesia, I just looked up, and he's known for making like super subversive gay cinema, and so now I'm gonna check out more of his films because this was like really powerful and radical. And for 1972, which still definitely wasn't accepting or open. So it's more coded, it's more implicit, but definitely worth a watch. So if you haven't seen The Cannibal Man, and you want to watch something queer and weird and kind of gory, definitely check out The Cannibal Man on Shudder, AMC Plus, or Tubi. Have either of you guys checked this out or not?
I have not. I have not.
Nope.
Okay. All right. Well, then we're gonna keep this train chugging along, baby. And Ruthless Chris, what have you got? This is the last round, by the way. Last
Killer
round.
Chris
What's the last round for you, baby?
So I watched this earlier today. Brand new flick on Tubi, Cocaine Shark, 2023, by Mark Polonia, who is prolific at making dog shit. Like he made all those feeder movies that people like make fun of. Noah's Shark, Amityville Island. He makes a lot of the Amityville like knockoffs, Amityville in Space, Splatter Farm. This one is Cocaine Shark only in name. There is no cocaine in this movie. It's also it's not really about a shark. It's a shark lobster monster. There's also a shark man, and then there's a bat spider.
That's what's up.
It's all done in stop motion, all the monsters.
Better.
This thing, I had an utter blast with it. It's one of those things. This is a movie like made for like watching with a group of friends, like to laugh at, and like, oh my god. The story does not make a lick of sense. Like it's just means to get to the next monster thing. But it like loosely based around it's told like a detective noir. So you got like a undercover cop, and he's like doing the voiceover, like, oh, this thing into my life, like all that shit. But then there's like this subplot of drug dealers, and that's where you think the cocaine's gonna come into, but no. They're making their own drug by killing sharks and turning it into this thing called like TH29. None of it makes any sense. The acting is like Ed Wood level horrible. Like you could tell it was just like one take every time. Like we got it. It's like, but he said it like he was reading off the page. Don't care. Moving on. There's several characters that play multiple roles, and all they do is just give them a wig or shave them. Like there's a guy who has a beard, and then they shave his fucking beard off for like half a scene, or to be another character. It's really odd, but it's a lot of fun. Even when the monsters are like eating people, like I told you, it's claymation, so like it's literally like an action figure they're jamming in their mouth. So yeah, if you like stop motion lobster sharks or bat spiders or shark men, the shark man's the funniest one because it's like. They literally made like a paper mache head and put it on this dude, and he's got a lab coat on, and he just walks around eating people. And like, None of it makes a lick of sense, but fuck, I had fun with it. But objectively, I had to give it a 2, just because it was an awful film. But fuck, I thought it was fun. So that's Cocaine Shark with no cocaine. Brand new on Tubi. I was the first person to rate it on Letterboxd ever.
I feel like that's an honor in itself.
It's got to be pretty new. Yeah.
Good job.
Cocaine Shark.
How many stars did you give this again?
Objectively, now I had fun. The amount of fun I would give like a 4-star movie, but objectively, I had to give it 2, and the 2 just came for the fun load because it is a piece of dog shit, but it's a funny piece of dog shit.
Would you put this in the same class as a film like Velocipaster?
Yes, but Velocipaster had a lot better sense of humor, where this one was just like tragically funny.
Okay. Because I love Velocipaster. I think it's very smart, and the way that it's
This is not.
This is not.
This is like, if you try to make any coherency out of the story, at least Velocipaster has a story. You can figure out what's going on. This one is just like a bunch of shit that happens, and then monsters, and then more shit happens, monsters. Shit happens, monsters.
All right. Well, that's fair enough. 2 stars. Tubi, Cocaine Shark. I do like stop motion animation, and I do like dog shit, so I may check it out at some point.
I think you would actually like it. I think you would. I think most. If you can relish in some cheese, then this is for you. If not, don't even fucking look at this thing.
All right, good to know. Good to know. Killer Kelly, you got one more for us, babe?
Yeah, the one I'm going to talk about, I'm just going to assume most of our viewers have seen, but I watched it earlier today, and we've never talked about it, so I'm going to talk about it. This is Bubba Ho-Tep from 2002. This movie's great. If you haven't seen it, fucking check it out. You can watch it on Freevee, Pluto, Tubi, all the free good ones. Bruce Campbell is in this. It is directed by Dan Casarelli.
Don Casarelli. Jesus.
Man
who made fantastic.
I can't read my writing today, man. I don't know. Like, it's fucking chicken scratch today.
Don Casarelli.
I'm like, is that a date? Is it an A? Yeah. No. Okay, but he did Phantasm. He did fucking John Dies at the End. That's
a good flick too.
That is a great flick. But yes. But anyway, Bruce Campbell plays Elvis Presley. He is now old and he's in a nursing home. He's got this story that why he's there because he originally switched places with an Elvis impersonator, and that Elvis impersonator obviously died, so he couldn't get his life back. So now he's but dying alone in this shitty ass retirement village, and he's got a friend, JFK, Black JFK in a wheelchair. He never really tells his story.
Who thinks his brain was replaced with a bag of sand?
That's right. Yes, they never really get into his story and how he thinks he switched bodies, but you just run with it. All right, that's JFK. That's cool. Elvis and JFK. So these two are homies in this nursing home, and there's people are dying. I mean, it's a nursing home, so people are always dying, but no, they're dying under some weird circumstances. JFK and Elvis believe that there is a mummy sucking souls out of anuses in this in the nursing home.
I guess it kind of makes it on topic.
And lo and behold, they are correct. So for the rest of this movie, they are hunting the fucking mummy who is sucking souls out of anuses in the nursing home. This movie is obviously a horror comedy. It is fantastic. I give it 5 fucking stars. I love this movie. If you haven't seen it, go watch it now. Just pause this and watch it. But yeah, you guys have both seen this. I know you have.
I haven't seen it since it first came out. I remember I saw it in the theater, and I really didn't know much about it except that it was starring, Bruce Campbell and directed by Don Coscarelli. Now I can't. Coscarelli, and if you're a horror fan and you're not a fan of Phantasm, you're a fucking dipshit. But just knowing that those two things about the film and going into it, and then oh my god, every layer of the story unfolds, and it's such a stupendous film. It's such an amazing film, funny, horror, comedy, all the great. When a genre film can like seamlessly fold every genre into it, elements of fantasy, elements of different things, that makes it genuinely an enjoyable film that you can't pigeonhole as one single thing, makes it great. Yeah, so I love Bubba Ho-Tep as well. Do you know if it's streaming anywhere, Kelly?
Yeah, I believe it's on Tubi and Freevee and Pluto.
Very cool. Yeah, I think I need to update my DVD to a Blu-ray. I'm pretty sure I only have the DVD of this when it first came out.
Same.
But yeah, if you haven't seen Bubba Ho-Tep, definitely watch it. I'm gonna give it a 5 as well. Chris, I know you've seen Bubba Ho-Tep. Talk about it for a second.
So my first experience with Bubba Ho-Tep was an interesting one. I got to see it when it was on the like a touring circuit before it had premiered with Bruce Campbell introducing it. And it ended up being quite an interesting story. The girl I was dating at the time, this girl Debbie, she used to drive around to Hearst. And we drove it down to Columbus to see this movie, and we had to drive it back, or I had to drive it back in a blizzard afterwards, like a full-on fucking blizzard. But we went down to Columbus. Bruce introduced it. We got to see it. Got to meet Bruce afterwards. I've actually seen Bruce introduce a couple movies. I got to see him do Evil Dead at the original theater where they originally premiered it, and they had an organ player play the organ for the soundtrack that played it the original night it premiered, and they retrofitted all the prices on the concessions they were that night. So it was like I spent less than $1 and I got popcorn, soda, and some candy and shit. And then I got to see him introduce My Name is Bruce, or Call Me Bruce. What's the one where he plays himself? Whatever it was.
Yeah.
Bruce introduced some stuff, but this was the first time I had ever met him in person. Drove back in a blizzard. So this one holds a special place in my heart because not only is it a great fucking film, but I have a great story with it. Definitely give it 5 stars. This thing is so funny and tongue in cheek. I mean, I think the opening voiceover is him talking about how he's got like a big
boil on his dick,
big pussy boil on his dick, and later on he's gonna lube it up and pop it and call it Priscilla. It's a wild movie. I definitely highly recommend it. Definitely give it a watch if you've never seen it. I refuse to believe most people that listen have never seen Bubba Ho-Tep.
Yeah, same. That's what I said. I was like, most people that have listened to this or watched this have absolutely seen this movie. But if you haven't, fucking just stop it right now and watch it.
And you have no excuse because you say it's streaming for free on Tubi.
Yes.
So there you go.
Pluto. Yep.
Yeah, I got one last one to talk about before we go to Spoiler Town with Freddy's Revenge. But the last film I'm going to talk about, once again, I went to Shudder's queer horror section, and I went with a more recent entry that I was interested in. It is a vampire film from 2021 called So Vam. The title and the trailer that I believe I saw in there, I wasn't initially interested, but I figured I kind of just wanted to round out this queer horror movies that I was watching, and you know what? I was pleasantly surprised. There was definitely better than I expected it to be. But it's basically a young gay guy is in high school. He gets bullied, and he's hanging around outside of a gay bar because he's too young to get in. And this female vampire and this gender non-binary vampire, they kind of take him in, and they fight his bullies for him. And he winds up getting bullied to the point where he's out on the streets by himself, and this older homosexual man who's also a vampire kind of takes advantage of him, and it looks like he's going to die. But then this female vampire and the non-binary one, they swoop in, they save him, and they, he becomes like part of their gang. But after being kidnapped by the predatory old vampire, he becomes part of the rebellious vampire gang, and it kind of like becomes this little feud between the two groups of vampires. It's super low budget and it's super campy. If you don't mind a low budget, I would definitely say check it out. I'd also say, being 45 years old, I'm not going to appreciate this as well as a younger gay would probably enjoy it more, or a younger horror fan for that matter. But at the same time, it wasn't horrible. Directed by Alice McKay, who's known for making horror themed, or queer themed horror films. I also definitely popped when the one star, or the first star that shows up on the IMDb page, who plays the antagonist, the predatory older vampire, Chris Asimos, I think that's how you pronounce it, plays the Landon, but he was also in a 2017 very campy film that I loved. It made my top 10 of that year, called Fags in the Fast Lane, and it is like super raunchy, sort of like very John Waters, ridiculous film, and I don't know if you can even find it in America. I was lucky that the director sent me a copy, because like I got a digital screener, then I was like, I raved about it so many times that the director just sent me a copy. But yeah, just to see one of the stars from Fags in the Fast Lane in this vampire film, that definitely pushed it a little bit higher for me. So I gave it 3 stars. It's an Australian film. So, I love Australian films because it's usually, they go a bit harder. But yeah, it's on Shudder, 3 stars. And it's called So Vam. Oh, another quick thing that I liked about it was the opening monologue about drag queens. Reminded me a lot of the opening monologue from the original Stonewall biopic, which is a weird comparison because that's a very serious movie, and this is not so much. Although, one last interesting fact about So Vam: this is probably the only movie I've ever seen that opens with a trigger warning too. Before like anything even rolls, it's like, this movie has scenes of gay bashing, this sexual violence, blah blah blah, and I thought that was very unique. Once again, being a 45-year-old guy that's seen a million horror movies throughout his life, I'd never seen that. So that was kind of a unique twist, modern twist on, based on a true film or something like that, because at the beginning of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you get that whole sort of faux, this is based on a true story, true events. And this one came with a trigger warning. I kind of equate it with that sort of gimmick. And I like that. You got to update your gimmicks for a modern audience. But yeah, I gave it 3 stars. Either of you seen So Vam or heard of it?
I have not, but while I was looking for movies, like that's, I think I even saved it to my Shudder watch list. But yeah, this is one I was eyeballing.
I have not either. No.
Yeah, it's a cute, campy film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's worth a watch.
I gotta say the name isn't doing so much for. They could have came up with a much better name than that.
Yeah, that was a big turnoff for me as well. But like I said, I think a younger audience would probably appreciate it more. But on that note, choo choo, we're taking this train straight to Spoiler Town, and we are going to be talking about the 1985 follow-up to the original Nightmare on Elm Street. Nobody was expecting this one, straight out of left field. The Final Boy film of the ever, best, probably the most well-known queer horror movie, Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. Holy guacamole. Let's talk about this one. Guys, who wants to go first?
And now for our feature presentation.
I don't think a lot of people at first would really realize that this is a queer movie. They don't exactly I don't know. They don't make it too blatant, but it's definitely very. Well, all right. All right.
Okay. I'll say this. When I watched it when I was younger, it always felt like a weird entry. Like it always just felt like really different than the rest of them and like off. And I never could really put my finger on it when I was a younger man, and I think it had been at least 10 years since I had seen it before watching it for this. Because it was I remember it being one of my lesser favorites of the bunch. But that's mainly because I wasn't seeing it really for what it was. I was always, I always liked Dream Warriors and that shit. But rewatching it for this, it's pretty fucking blatant, especially when you get with the coach and things going on with the coach. I'm just gonna call him Quado for the rest of the episode. Because that was the dude who was Quado from Total Recall. But the dude literally, he runs into him at a gay club. He's in leather with a studded wristband, and then the next thing you know, he's bare ass getting slapped with towels. Man, come on.
It's true. Yeah, like I said, what I also have not seen this in many years, and I didn't remember it like the way I watched it today. And I didn't remember it being as like blatant and like obvious as it is, like older and knowing what I know now, about the world and
And why I'm thinking about it, I just have to point out one thing that really fucking cracked me up though. The friend character, what was his name? Grady, who he went and stayed the night at, like I think so. The kid with the leather sheets. He had leather sheets for no reason.
Oh yeah.
He had a Lindell poster on his wall, and that dude is famous for singing the Never Ending Story theme song. So if you remember the Never Ending Story,
really? Yeah, Ron Grady had some unique posters on his wall because I noticed Stray Cat was one as well.
Yeah.
He had Stray Cats. He had King Cobras.
I did see the Stray Cats.
Yeah. So I just, while I was thinking about it, I just had it because I was just like, is that what I think it is? So then I, pulled up my phone. I was like, yeah, that's the dude who sang Never Ending Story theme song. Because when I was a child, I looked identical to the kid to the Never Ending Story. I used to hear it all the time. It was a personal favorite movie of mine.
For those of you not familiar with A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, this film is about a teenage boy who is haunted in his dreams by deceased child murderer Freddy Krueger, who is out to possess him in order to continue his reign of terror in the real world. So yeah, it doesn't really fit in the rest of the Nightmare on Elm Street films because instead of sticking to the mythos of only existing in the protagonist's dreams, this is more of a possession film.
Yes.
And that definitely sets it apart initially. And then also
this is the only one he actually exists physically in the real world. And the other thing I noticed that's not in any of the other movies, most of the time he doesn't have a glove. It's nails coming out of his fingers. Because he is going through the body of the main character as opposed to him being himself. So I thought that was interesting and unique too, is that they scrap the glove is in the movie, but when he's in the real world, it's just knives coming out of his fingertips.
It's almost like a Wolverine sort of thing.
Kind of.
Yeah, it's definitely unique how that it changes the narrative completely, and it's one of the only films that has a final boy. And like Chris was saying, you don't think about and it's not subtext. It's definitely text when you're initially watching it. When this first came out, or when I was watching horror movies initially as a youngster, but pre-teens even, I was just like, okay, well, this movie has nothing to do with any of the other films. It's a possession film. It's stupid. It's garbage. It wasn't until years later, rewatching it and having people point out, no, dude, this is actually, super gay film, and it's about a young man coming to terms with his sexuality or battling different themes of sexuality, and it actually becomes really brilliant to rewatch, for me at least.
Yeah.
because I know that, growing up in high school, especially, it was like, I don't want to, in the 90s, and this takes place in early 80s. I didn't want anybody to know I was gay. I didn't come out until I was in college. And so, like, battling those feelings, pushing them back inside, and having them come out. You're sleeping over your friend's house or something, and you're wrestling with him, and oops, these feelings are coming out. And it was a very, very unique feeling to see him battling with that Freddy Krueger mentality.
Yeah.
And I know that, like, the writer has said on and off, well, it's actually more of a homophobic film. It's not a homoerotic film. Because he's retracted that statement since, because at the end of the film, spoiler town, you notice that Jesse is saved by the true love of his girlfriend.
The kiss from the girl or whatever.
Yes.
So it kind of like shoves Freddy back into him, which is
right.
Yeah.
The heterosexual, the heterosexual relationship with his girlfriend saves him from Freddy Krueger. So yeah, he's gone on record, and one of the initial, the writer, at least, one of the original interviews, we're talking about Freddy's Dead. He's like, oh yeah, this is more of a homophobic film where I talk about the true love of a woman can save any man from homosexuality. Ha ha ha. I was happy to see that, in the documentary Scream Queen, My Nightmare on Elm Street, Mark Patton, who plays Jesse Walsh in this, he actually got to confront the writer about that statement, and that's when the writer was able to apologize and retract that. And he said that he never meant to hurt anybody, because for a long time, Mark blamed him for ruining his career. And so if you haven't seen that documentary too, Scream Queen, My Nightmare on Elm Street, that's also streaming on Shudder. But that was a really smart documentary. It was actually more about Mark and what he's been through since Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge came out. But yeah, rewatching this also, like you were saying, Chris, this isn't subtext. This is text, plain and simple. And
Freddy comes out of him.
Yeah, it comes out. Yeah. So, but yeah, also playing the queerness as like the bad guy is it's
something to withhold and to keep inside and protect people from.
I mean, on one hand, and this is any sort of marginalized group will do this, especially with early films. You latch on to any sort of representation, and I think that's why people in the LGBTQ community have sort of embraced Freddy's Revenge so much, is because Mark Patton is there, and he wasn't an openly gay man in those times, and this sort of like forced it out there because it's a very gay character, and nobody really recognized it at the time. Not him, not nobody really did. It's funny though, because watching that documentary, Robert Russell, who plays his best friend Ron Grady, he actually said, he's like, oh yeah, I read the script once and I knew it was a gay movie. I mean, because they say the coach, what's his name? But Marshall Bell plays Coach Schneider. At one point, they say, "Oh yeah, he hangs out at those queer S&M bars downtown." And so when you hear that, and then you see Jesse sort of like slinking around in the rain, trying to sneak up into the queer S&M bar, and then the next thing you know, they're in the gym locker room. Watching this now is like a whole different ball of wax.
It really is.
I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate watching that documentary, Scream Queen, My Nightmare on Elm Street, because, I've met Mark a couple times at different fan festivals and conventions and stuff, and he's really appreciative of his fans because he didn't know that, especially his queer fans appreciated this film so much and appreciated his portrayal in this film. Rewatching it now, while rewatching it today, it was kind of upsetting to see how it could obviously be interpreted as like a
Yeah.
homophobic slur, but at the same time, it was a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun.
And that dance, we got to talk about the dance for a second. You know, the dance that they're talking about. I can't remember if he's getting ready for a date or what it is, but he puts on like this horrible 80s dance music, and he's like bumping the bureau with his butt, and he's got the cute little lightning bolt sunglasses on. It's very gay, but it's so adorable, and people like do this dance for him whenever they see him. Yeah, guys, chime in on this, please.
Yeah, the dance is fun, man. I'd like to learn it. We should dance.
The dance sequence great. I wonder if he appreciates that or not, though. You know, with all the trauma, associated with this movie for him. Because I did watch the Scream Queens documentary or Scream Queen documentary, and it did feel like this really fucked his life up for a while. Until he came to realize what was really going on, came to, accept it and get over it,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it said like, he had been completely out of the public light and acting until that.
And he was great in it.
Previous to this,
he's fantastic in it.
Yeah.
What's up?
I said he's great in it. I agree.
Yeah, the guy acted his fucking ass off in the movie. He was great. Like, his performance was great.
Yeah, I agree totally. And I mean, it's a shame that, he really didn't do anything after this, and he wouldn't get offered roles after this. His agent was just like, well, now you got to do gay roles. And he's like, but, that's not what I want to do. I want to play everything. And unfortunately, he got typecast, and, he got death threats. And I mean, when you, especially a few years ago, maybe 15, 20 years ago, just that recent, all you would see is negative aspects of this film all over the place on the internet. And now it seems to like the tide has turned, and it's nice to see people giving Mark Patton and the Jesse character his due respect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, one of the things that I really did enjoy, again, rewatch this, like I said, it's one of the ones I've watched the least. As a Nightmare on Elm Street movie as well, Freddy is really good in this. This is another one right before he goes into the jokey stuff. He comes off genuinely creepy and has some great scenes. He's intense. This movie was a lot better than I remembered it being.
It really was. And I think that's why I haven't seen it in so many years, too. Like, that one's different. The possession aspect's weird. And, like, watching it again today, like, I thoroughly enjoyed it, actually.
It's definitely, like, up there with New Nightmare, where, like, it is, like, completely a kind of a whole like different story than what you normally would get out of a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. For it to come as the second movie, like they took a big swing just at the second one. I mean, when they go to the boiler and there's the two dogs with human faces, I forgot completely about that. That flipped me the fuck out. I was like, holy shit. There's some really cool stuff in this. Like, even the scenes where, where he's struggling with Freddy within himself. He's trying to hold him in. And like, there's that one scene where he starts screaming. You see Freddy's eyeball in his mouth. And then, there's the scene where he starts coming out of the stomach and slashes his stomach and just like walks out of him. And like Jesse falls like a skin suit. Like, there's a lot of really cool stuff in this movie that I completely, and then, the opening sequence, that's one of the few times it really did feel like one of the other Nightmare on Elm Street, where they're in the bus and the bus starts going and all the land falls away and all that. That's the only time it really feels like one of the other Nightmare incantations. Aside from that, it really feels like it went really in its own direction. And Freddy's Revenge, I think, is a terrible name for this movie, because what's he revenging? What's happening that's revenge in this movie?
The boy moves in, into the house, so that's where they kind of start, or the house across the street,
Yeah, but what's
I don't know.
If it was revenge, it would be against Nancy.
They didn't put much thought into the title for the second.
Yeah. Although the font, the big metal death metal logo, the '80s hair metal, Freddy's Revenge at the beginning popped me pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's great to go back and watch this again. I wish that it was streaming somewhere, anywhere.
Yeah.
So if you don't own this as one of the many collections of Nightmare on Elm Street films, you can go out and buy a physical copy for pretty cheap. And I highly suggest it because, like everybody has said tonight, when you rewatch this film, you can appreciate it so much more. It's super smart, great effects, cool gore. And it's the last time when Freddy Krueger is genuinely scary. Yeah, I originally gave it 4 stars. I'm gonna give it 4.5 stars just because I want to. Fuck it. Yeah. But Freddy's Revenge, buy a physical copy because it's not streaming anywhere.
Yeah.
I'm giving it 4.5 stars. What would you guys give it?
Since my my player and shit's broken, I rented it off of Amazon actually because like I couldn't. But it was only $2.83, so you got that route too. I give it 3.5, 4. Yeah.
$2.83. What a strange number.
Yeah, I know. That's what I said. I was like, what? $2.83? Okay.
$2.83. Well, I give it 4. It's definitely it's definitely going to raise in where I hold it in my nightmare lineup. It's definitely better than Dream Child. So yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. It's definitely a strange movie for its time. I
think nowadays it can be more appreciated than what it was when it came out, for sure.
Yes,
absolutely, 100%. I agree with everything you said there. But on that note, go check out Freddy's Revenge. Happy Pride Month. And but I'm very excited. We've got a very special guest on next week. We have director Brandon Paris on to talk about his debut full-length film Death Drop Gorgeous, which was a super campy giallo inspired indie queer horror film on Shudder. I think I used all the words to describe it.
Yeah. Gory as shit.
Yes, yeah. And I'm very excited to have this movie. Happy to have this director on for Pride Month, and it'll be fun to discuss Death Drop Gorgeous, what he's been doing since, and what he did before. You guys got any last words for the folks out there in Real Vile Land?
Keep it sleazy.
Easy sleaze.
All right, we got and keep it sleazy. And from your old pal, Mr. Germ T. Ripper, I'm going to say keep it creepy, keep it spooky, God bless America, and send nudes. Hey, all you cats and kittens, all you ladies and lady killers out there in Real Vile Land. This is your old pal, Mr. Germ T. Ripper, saying keep it spooky, keep it creepy, keep it real vile forever. And don't forget, like, subscribe, and share all our content. Ow!